I thought I read that you could take it off while you were speaking as long as you were 6 feet away from
Yeah,
anyone.
yeah, the 6 feet.
Last time I checked, I'm not 6 feet away.
Not quite.
Hi, Paul. We saved your seat, buddy, right there.
Thank you. How are you, Paul?
I like your punctuality. I like your
Pretty good,
punctuality.
thank
On the number. Hey, folks, we've got a quorum, and it's 4-ish. So I'd like to call our September meeting to order, and I just have a couple of comments to start with. Within the committee, I circulated about umpteen dates. Hopefully that's sort of going to work for everybody. I tried to project forward, just in case, you know, for planning purposes. That was the big thing. And then secondly, indulge me if you would. Former committee member Tom Johnson passed away, as you know, on September 7th. And I thought it was important, I just wanted for the record to put in context the body of work that this committee member accomplished. And I put it down in writing just so that I would hopefully not miss anything. I said Tom's contributions to service to the town were profound. He was part of the newly reorganized committee. You may not, this is editorializing, but the entire golf committee at one point in time resigned in this town, and they didn't have a committee for a while, and then the selectmen, apparently responding to the public, decided to reconstitute a committee, and myself and Tom were part of that original group. In any event, he truly embodied the concept of public servant. In the discharge of his duties, his files, notes, and written anecdotal would fill the room. He held office as vice chair for several years. He was a glass half full kind of guy. He constantly promoted the positive aspects of our operations at Cranberry Valley. He helped to create the funding mechanisms that we now enjoy that support us financially in various aspects of the golf operations. He promoted not only junior golf, but access to the military veterans and new golfers designated as handicapped. His efforts will be sorely missed going forward, but his spirit and good humor will always be part of the fabric of Cranberry Valley golf and the town of Harwich. So if you join me in a moment of silence. Thanks. Okay, I appreciate that. If there's agreement in the committee, I'd like to send these sentiments along to the family. And Tom would have liked a positive vote on this motion. So, Martha? I approve. Okay. Motion made and seconded by Carol. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thanks. There was another gentleman too that was very much a pro Cranberry Valley golf advocate, Robin Wilkins. But I don't have the details. He passed away recently as well. Did you know him, Jack?
Occasionally, I've been
Yeah,
in meetings
because
with
that was a generation prior. But in any event, we're at the public comment juncture. If there's anybody that'd like to speak to the committee. Okay. Thank you. And welcome to our director of golf. Roman's done a lot of prep work as far as the agenda is concerned, and we'll get to that after a vote to approve the August minutes, which were circulated. So moved and seconded. Okay. John Crook, and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Perfect. So that brings us to Roman's report. And agenda-wise, under new business, because this is a big kind of cumbersome issue, budget, that's why I kept it as streamlined as I could. I wanted to give it full attention, and especially if you look at that timetable, the public hearing, coming forward, it's just downstairs checking on that. For the public's benefit, beyond our October meeting, and this is traditional, the public hearing will be held on October 26th. But you guys have all those dates, the public might not have it, so.
Clem, could you
Yeah.
please be sure to communicate that to Mike Sargent so he has time
Yeah,
to
I mean,
post it in the paper?
I'll send him that document.
Okay.
I thought I copied him
All
on
right,
this
maybe
preview, but,
He asked me if you would communicate with him on that, so he makes sure he gets the
oh yeah, I
posting
know,
done.
because we want to get that posted.
Yeah.
It's complicated with the newspapers, if you remember. You know, we have to advertise 14 business days, not weekends, so we'll make sure that happens. Okay, Rome?
Okay. So before I start what I prepared here, I just wanted to say, following up on what Clem mentioned about Tom Johnson, the director of the Slough Military Golf Association, who had a great relationship with Tom Johnson, they ended up being very, very friendly, and Tom really had a great influence with all the members, all the veterans with Slough Military Golf. They're preparing a plaque for our clubhouse in honor of Tom and the relationship that Tom helped to forge with Slough Military Golf Association. So I thought that'd be very nice. When we get into next spring and start talking about tournaments, it was suggested by Jerry Shanahan from Slough Military Golf Association that maybe we name the Slough Military Golf Association event at Cranberry Valley in Tom's honor. So it'd be the Tom Johnson Memorial Slough Military Golf Association event. We'll tackle that in the spring.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. I'll go through this quickly. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we're full-on operations mode. Very busy. The golf course is very busy. We've lost a lot of staff. We actually were lucky enough to have one new staff member join the team, so that's helping us get by. But we've lost another one to illness. So tough times at the golf course, keeping the rounds going through the place. But the weather's been, for the most part, very good, and the golf conditions are very, very fine. As far as maintenance goes, the tees and fairways have all been aerated. Green aeration is scheduled for the third week of October. That's what we've been doing for the past few years. Bid documents have been submitted to the administration for the bunker maintenance RFP that we're planning to do this fall. So I'll have more information upcoming on how they want to tackle that, but we're hoping that gets published very shortly and we name a vendor. Our reciprocal season has begun. It began on the 15th of this month, so Monday through Thursday with 2-day advance booking. There's a $30 greens fee for all of our members at Dennis Highlands, Pines, Captains, Bass River, Bayberry, Old Barnstable, Hyannis, and Sandwich Hollows. And we'll see many members of those golf courses coming over to play Cranberry Valley. The events that we've had since the last meeting are the Cranberry Valley 9-Hole Women's Association had a member guest on 8/31. We had the Women's Fall Cup on the 8th of September. Unfortunately, they only got in a few holes before a tremendous thunder and lightning chased them away. We had the Cranberry Cup on both the 8th and 15th. Those are the 2 rounds in September. And then the Women's Golf Association 18-hole member guest on the 14th. It's
Was that the 50 Shades of Green?
Yes.
Roman?
yes.
Just checking. Just checking.
If you've been at the golf course in the afternoons, you've seen the Monomoy High School and middle school teams playing. The middle school program, I just wanted to mention, that was set up to be a first tee program.
Yeah.
They have so many interested students that the first tee coaches are coaching it, but Mass Golf did not want to endorse it as a full-on first tee program, even though they're following all the protocols, because they can't possibly meet the 1-to-6 ratio of students to teachers. So that's Monomoy High School only, and it's being coached by the same coaches from the school that also participated in the first tee program, but that's not an officially sanctioned first tee program this fall. Tee times, one thing I wanted to mention is we are reallocating some member tee times, and this is, again, a sign of the times that the pandemic is its effects on the golf course are passing. In the last 2 weeks, we've had no overflow list whatsoever at the golf course, and in fact, we're seeing too much distribution going to the members where every request is being accommodated, and there's still blocks of tee times that are underutilized. So what we're gonna do going forward is I'm gonna manage the tee sheet to where we're still gonna have the same allocation available to members for the, for the lottery 3 days out. But once the lottery occurs, we'll take some of those tee times that were not utilized by members and convert them into public tee times to see if we can sell them. And then we'll do the same thing we've always done, which is the night before play, they'll be turned back over to the members to grab what's left. But it's kind of nice to see that demand is going back to traditional levels post Labor Day. And then one thing that I was hoping to get the committee's thoughts on, the Cape Cod Lighthouse League approached me to host their championship. It's a very low impact event. It's going to be on October 9th or 10th. That's a Saturday or Sunday, and it would be 1 hour of tee times. They're looking for 12:30 to 1:30, 7 tee times only. I'd love to get the thoughts of the committee. Just for perspective, that is Columbus Day weekend. It's the weekend where we turned away the Monomoy boosters on that Monday from having a fundraising shotgun. But this is a much lower impact event. This is just, instead of a shotgun, it's strictly 1 hour of afternoon tee times. And it may be a nice gesture to Monomoy to have them be able to host as the home team. But I'd love to get the thoughts from the committee on if you'd like to approve this event. So far, it's simply a request.
Yeah.
What's the Cape Cod Lighthouse League?
Yeah.
They've reorganized, so the Cape Cod Lighthouse League is the league that Monomoy High School is in.
Oh, it's high school?
It's high school golf, yeah. It's the league that Monomoy High School's in. The bigger schools, such as Nauset, Barnstable, Sandwich, they're in the Mayflower League, I believe it's called. But this includes some of the smaller schools, DY, Monomoy, and I think so it's only going to be 7 teams. Each team is bringing 4. Would bring 4 kids.
Do you think we would have a problem, Roman, in that we turn down the booster?
I mean, I'd love to get your thoughts on what I think is it's a nice gesture for the school in lieu of the booster event, is to show support for the school to host.
They're not having the booster.
So we didn't host it. They're having it at the Ridge Club instead. So they're
I
still
see.
having their booster event. They're still having it the same Columbus Day Monday, I believe.
But we said no to them.
We said no to the booster, but again, to me, it's a big difference, that the difference of a shotgun event, which takes up the whole day. They want an 8:30 shotgun as opposed to an hour of tee times in the afternoon. I think it's a much lower. We're talking about 28 golfers instead of
And
the
is
whole
that
day.
a combination of both member time slot and non-member?
Yeah. So
time slot?
what we would do, Carol, is we would if this was approved, we would take that hour out of the mix and then have the rest of the day fall into the normal 60-40 weekend split. So we just adjust those tee times out and still have an allocation of the remaining tee times of the 60-40 split.
Steve?
No, I think it's fine.
Paul?
I was just wondering if you had that kind of flexibility on those days, because I know personally, I tried to book some guests on Friday, and I had to switch it to Thursday because there was nothing available on Fridays. I mean, you know better than I would. I mean, have you got that kind of flexibility on either day?
So we do at this point on the when I was first asked to consider it, I put a block on it. So I'm holding an hour worth of tee times, I believe, on the Saturday the 9th. Pending the committee's decision. It's for right now, for the Saturday, the Sunday, or the Monday, it's not really booked yet. This time of year, the bookings don't normally happen that far in advance. You were asking about the Friday. Perhaps the Friday was a little different, but when I just looked at the tee sheets again this morning for that weekend, and not looking at Friday, but Saturday, Sunday, Monday, they're not that busy. There is availability still.
Reinforcing what Roman said, just to weigh in, I think it meets our objectives as far as promoting junior golf. I like the fact that it's focused on small schools, where we're giving them some recognition, and with the limited number of tee times, I think it's more than appropriate. I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Paul. Any discussion? Ladies? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous, Roman?
Great, thank you.
let them know.
Could I ask
Sure.
that when you ask for verbal, it may not be unanimous. Either, I think we either need a show of hands or ask if there's anyone who wants to oppose or abstain.
Yeah,
It's
fine.
just because I didn't even say anything.
Oh, I
I-
apologize.
I'm just saying that it's hard in a small group
Yeah.
like that.
No problem. No problem.
Okay, and that's all I had for you under the director's report.
Roman, I do have a question.
Yes, please.
So one of the things is when non-members, the day before, there are spaces available for members. We can't go online and book it. We have to try to get through to someone at the club.
When are you talking about, Carol? The day before?
Correct,
Okay, the day before, if it's a non-member tea time.
correct. And it's now open to us.
So the non-member tea times, the day before, are not available to members until the closing of the pro shop. Because the final duty we do when we close the pro shop, which is at 5 o'clock right now, we
Right,
convert those over to non-member tea times. So that's when they become available on Chelsea.
right, but we can't book them online even after that. We have to try in the morning to get to the course.
I don't think that's the case.
Really?
Yeah,
You can
I'm
book 'em
quite,
online.
You can book
Yeah,
them.
you
On Sunday, like, say it's Sunday night.
Yeah, after 5
We
o'clock.
do,
Yeah.
Huh.
like at 5 o'clock, we put it in the meeting.
yeah,
Okay, my apologies.
that's okay.
Because I tempted,
Comes back.
Well, the one caveat to that, and it's one thing that has been frustrating in the summer when there are only a few spots available, the system does not allow us to convert partial tea times to where if there's a twosome available that was a non-member tea time, it will not allow us to convert that into a member tea time without dropping the two people that were already in it. So
got it,
so
okay.
partial tea times cannot be converted.
Okay,
But you would need to call in the morning for those. And then it has happened where the staff closing the pro shop has forgotten to convert. It's a rare occurrence, but for the most part, those are available each night, and many people do take advantage of that.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ron.
You're welcome.
Anything further?
No,
Oh, okay. Perfect. We can, actually, I was thinking about one thing. Is it possible to extract the data as far as we know what the number of rounds of golf are in a year's time too, but with the Chelsea system, it tracks member X, Y, and Z in terms of, you can identify how many rounds of golf that individual has played.
yes.
So we could therefore extract what an averaging is as far as the number of rounds played, by an annual pass holder / member. Is that-
By a specific one or by an average?
An
average for the
of-
whole
yeah,
lot?
for the whole,
Okay.
for the whole group.
Let me look into
I
that.
just thought it'd
Not
be
sure.
interesting. Because we're, if you're looking at the value of the membership, there's some nuances there.
Okay. Let me take a look at
Yeah.
that. I'm sure that there's a way to get to that. And then one thing I did forget to mention, Clem, is I forgot to bring up the financial sheet. So I can put
Yeah.
that up here and see if there's any questions on the monthly financials. See, I've got that just down here.
By the way, for the audience as well, Roman's PowerPoint, that can be made available too. So, you don't have to crib down those numbers.
So
Thanks.
I'll field any questions anybody has about the financials, but once again, they're very strong. Last fiscal year was a historic year as far as revenue, and we're outpacing it at this point. The month of August was $33,000 over in greens fees, $14,000 over in cart fees. For the year, we're $57,000 over last year through 2 months. So once again, it's going strong. We'll see. As I mentioned, We're seeing a return to normalcy as far as member rounds. We'll see if that happens with the non-member rounds as well, if there's a drop-off in greens fees, but we haven't seen it at this point.
How does that look in comparison to fiscal year '20? Because we have an aberration and then we have return to more normal, but how does it compare to the prior year?
I could easily run a comparison. We're comparing to the historically best year, and we're above that, so we would be historically above any previous year. That's where we're currently comparing. Because when these comparisons here to FY21 ended with $2.13 million total revenue, and previously our high was less than 1.9 million. So we're comparing to the historic best, and we're comparing favorably.
That's great. Hey, Roman, do you have any insight too as far as the year that Bob Miller has had, as well as Ron Leidner?
Yeah, nothing specific
Yeah.
as far as financials go, but I talk to Bob all the time. He's having his best year. From what he's told me, he's really excited about the van. The van has brought a lot of attention and brought a lot of new programming. So he's had more of a presence on our driving range than he's ever had in the past. Again, I've had a lot of conversations with Ron Leidner. He's having a good season. He's having a tremendous difficulty with staffing, as all restaurants are, but he's getting by, and he hasn't had to take any steps to limit his offerings because of that. And I speak with him pretty regularly to see where he stands on the new lease upcoming, and he's just completely on the fence. He doesn't want to say one way or the other. So, but from what I've seen, he's having a good year, but a difficult year with staffing.
Yeah. Okay. Is that going to move up to the?
Yeah, so I can scroll that down. So rounds, it is funny that you look at the greens fees were so much above last year's August. We're actually down in rounds a couple hundred, which is not much, but that really shows the revenue is up, probably because we went up in rates and fees is one of the main reasons there. But for
if you remember, people, I believe we threw a $5 bill. $5 bill increase, and the fact that it's fewer rounds and more money, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Good thing for you people, as members.
And then the annual pass numbers change very little this time of year. Revolving fund balances, I've got them all there. The infrastructure fund balance looks a little screwy. That's because the annual debt payment hit on the first day of the fiscal year for the cart barns. That's been paid, and so that actually had us with a red number technically until this month, where we just got above that.
In terms of pro shop sales and the stocking issues and so on, where are we in terms of what those realities are?
Yeah, so the realities are, we've all seen it. We can't get any merchandise in the pro shop. Most pro shops are facing a problem with grips, with clothing, with everything. We've had special orders for clubs that take 6 weeks to get in that used to take 10 days. So the investment is in the pro shop has been lower this year because we knew, when we ordered for the year, we knew the realities of the pandemic would see a lot fewer people in the pro shop. We're seeing revenues down, but it's also for less investment. So the fund balance has grown appropriately, because I think we started this our last fiscal year just over 200,000 in fund balance. So we've gained pretty much appropriately for what we normally do.
Have your vendors indicated when they anticipate, hopefully, things becoming more normalized?
No, I'm hoping for next season. Really, we're trying. We can't get gloves, balls, the basics. If you go into the pro shop, it's all right-handed gloves. It's difficult. Grips, Golf Pride grips, which have been the standard in the golf industry forever, you can't get them. And so,
I think I shared this. I couldn't get a particular grip that I wanted. It's a Golf Pride grip, and I finally got them a couple of weeks ago, because I couldn't get them. Cranberry, I couldn't get them at Cape Cod National, from Scotland. A golf shop in Scotland. I looked at the, you know, the name on the envelope, because I did it through Amazon, and you pay a premium. Believe me, it's,
We were
It's
notified,
ridiculous.
we were notified that a cargo ship had lost a few containers, like in the China Sea or something, and it was full of golf pride grips. I don't know if I believe that, 'cause one of our sales reps actually told us that. I don't know,
Yeah.
but the fact is, it's hard to get our hands on anything.
Well, there's hundreds of cargo ships off the coast of Los Angeles right now. They don't have the trucks to move stuff, so they're
Yeah.
having to wait until they can
Yeah.
line up trucks. I mean, they get it to land and then they have no place to send it. They have no ability to send it, I should say.
Yeah, golf's no
It's
different.
happening all over the country.
It happening for
All
every
over the
It's
industry.
happening everywhere.
Yeah.
I was at a board meeting that I sit on, last week,
yeah.
and basically, we're assuming 2023 before the supply chain gets fixed.
2023.
2023.
Hey,
That's how broken it is.
Roma, because you've got it there, the snack bar concession, et cetera. What's the status of, you know, Ron Leidner with the town? Because I noticed in the papers, you know what I mean, there's been discussion about combining food services, if I got it right, between, you know, the Saquotucket Harbor operation, and has he revealed anything, or has that started, the process?
So nothing's come to the selectman level yet. I mentioned at the last golf committee meeting, I think, or maybe I mentioned by email to the committee,
Yeah.
that the town administrator said that in September, he's gonna present the Board of Selectmen with a plan for when he's gonna release both RFPs.
Okay, great.
And that plan will include the ability to bid on both or bid on individual.
Got you. Well,
Roman, on the infrastructure numbers up there,
Yep.
16,000 is what?
So that was for the month. So you get 16,000 for the month of August. The fiscal year to date is 33,000,
Okay.
and the total is only 5,000 because we made the $104,000 debt payment on July 1st.
Okay. Onto the
Okay.
debt service?
And right now, we have
Or-
a balance of 200,000 in the golf improvement budget.
Yes. Yep.
Could you possibly explain Golf Pro lessons?
Sure. So on the revenue side and then on the expense side, that's strictly on the expense side. That is paying the instructor. In our case, the only instructor that's giving lessons on our staff is Dick Fagan, our head pro. So that would be paying him for golf lessons, because that's an elevated number for this month. That included the entire PGA Junior League season, which lasts all summer. I think that bill hit in August. And I'm sorry, I'm wrong on that. We actually had a second instructor with PGA Junior League that received payment for that. So that's on the expense side. And then on the revenue side is when people pay for the lessons.
Okay, so is that a wash then?
There's a benefit to the town of a small amount. Lessons are I believe they're $55 per half hour, and the instructor receives 47 and change for the lesson time. So there's a small benefit to the town, but for the most part, it's a wash.
Okay, so he has a salary, and then he has this piece.
It is funny that so it's an entirely, in his case, it's an entirely separate job where he has a different pay scale as an instructor, and it basically matches close to 90% of what's being charged for the lesson. So if 55 is charged for the lesson, he's being paid 47 and change.
Right, but he also has a separate salary as
Yep.
golf professional.
Yep. So when he's given lessons, it's all on his own time. So it's almost like his part-time job aside from his job at the golf course. So whenever you see Dick in this case given a lesson, it's always before or after his shift, his scheduled shift.
Good question. Any others? Okay.
Okay. Okay, we good? Or was there something else you wanted to cover?
No, that's fine.
Sorry. jumping around.
Are you gonna cover the 22-23 budget?
That was next on the agenda, so I was gonna wait till
Yeah.
Clem got to that. Do you want me to go right into that, Clem? The budget
Sure.
discussion?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so let me find the documents here. Okay, so I sent everybody the documents I submitted for preliminary budget planning. I think at the last golf committee meeting, I remember telling everybody the next day I had a department head meeting where I thought they were gonna make a mask mandate or something like that. What instead we were presented with was the town administrator wanted to start a preliminary budget discussion. So he asked me to submit a very loose 5-year plan for the golf department, but with specificity to FY23. And then we would sit down with the town administrator, the assistant town administrator, and the finance director to discuss it. So I sent you the summary documents that I submitted there. This right here is the summary narrative, and then the spreadsheet that goes along with this. It's right here. Basically, as I said in the summary, we're looking to address salary and wages specifically for an adjustment for a couple of our operations staff, but mostly to keep in line with minimum wage for our seasonal operations staff, and then to address a few of the line items that were cut last year, such as irrigation supplies, and there was a few other items. We put in here more money for groundskeeping supplies because that's in pursuit of the Audubon certification. The extra $15,000 that we're requesting would allow us to go 90% organic as far as fertilizer and golf course applications go. Other than that, I think most of it's spelled out in the narrative. The most important thing that I found in preparing this was the salary and wage component.
Yeah.
Roman, at the top of the summary,
Oh,
what does CPC stand for, CPC requests?
It says community preservation requests.
Okay, okay.
All departments were asked,
Oh, no,
to-
that's CPA money?
yeah,
Yeah.
to what we wanted out of that. We've always traditionally stayed away from that and not competed with other departments. We've made a commitment to pay our own way.
Thank you.
Jack?
In your 22-23 budget, Roman,
Yep.
your electrical utilities is identical. Should it not be going down because of the solar?
Well, I spoke with the town administrator about this last year. The thought was really to wait until that becomes a reality before we hurt ourselves by cutting it. And, you know, I think I'm more comfortable obviously keeping it in there, but yes, I do expect there to be a reduction there. And if there is a reduction there and they approve this, that is money we could use elsewhere if needed. So I'm not in a rush to get rid of that. But once the electrical solar credits do hit the books, I'm sure we're going to be asked to reduce that number in the budget.
The interesting thing too, Jack, I think this is correct, Roman, since we did not sign the contracts, the town did, all that data supplied through Green Skies will go to the town first. And then Roman will be able to extract, you know, what the impact is when it does, when there is a final audit. But it's such, we just actually started, didn't we, Roman?
Yeah, so I spoke with Green Skies, I think it was yesterday, and the state's SMART program, which this has all been put under, has not yet caught up with our Schedule Z, which is where we plan to apply the electrical credit. So the reason I called them is I received for the month of August the same electric bills I always have, and so the Green Skies assured me it's going to catch up. It just takes time. So you're right, Clem, that we didn't sign the agreement, so we're not going to see it right away. I'm still going to see the EverSource bills because I signed for all the bills that come through for the golf course. So I'll be able to track when those credits begin to hit.
What kind of credit are we projecting for that?
So loosely, this solar field was supposed to negate our electric bills down to zero.
Yeah, right,
So-
but I mean, in terms of the total town getting a benefit out of that. Because it's probably projecting, it's probably crediting more than how much they go, right?
Well, so I helped them design the Schedule Z, which shows exactly where the credits go, and they're all scheduled to go to the golf course. We put a higher percentage to the cart barn because that's where we expect to charge the carts, and then a smaller percentage to the maintenance facility, and then an even smaller percentage to the clubhouse. So they will be applied all on the golf course property, but until, again, we haven't hit that reality yet where I've seen it on paper. And then we are allowed every 6 months to adjust that Schedule Z so that if we see we're applying too much to one area or not enough to another area, we can adjust that.
Under the summary, any comments, people, about salaries and wages?
Yes, I have. So you have no new positions requested under salary and wages, and yet down on seasonal operations staff, you have one new shift position, which is 8 hours per day. And then over on the increase, you have $47,759, which seems like a lot of money for
Yeah,
an
so-
increase in.
Yep, so what I submitted with this package to the town administrator and the finance director had a lot more math in it, but I can break it down to you. That increase that you're seeing in the salary and wages requested is, as it says it right at the top, there was a reclassification for one employee and a salary adjustment for another employee, and as part of that's kind of a small part. And then no new positions requested. It would be directed to full-time positions. The town doesn't count the number of seasonal positions. That's just one lump number. So when I said no new positions, that's what the town's more interested in as far as, is it going to be a employee with benefits? And so no, we're not going to hire any new employees in that regard. What I'm requesting is a new shift per day seasonally, which is just an additional 8 hours of seasonal pay per day in the lump sum of seasonal salary and wage.
Do you know what that amount specifically would be?
Yeah, I saw that amount, so, off the top of my head, I don't, but we could do, I mean, the math is fairly simple, so it'd be, for 7 months of the year, 8 hours a day times where it is right now is $13 per hour. And then, as, again, part of that lump, $46,000 or so, I did all the math to increase over the next 2 fiscal years our salary, our seasonal operations wage to keep up with minimum wage, because the first of the year, the next 2 years, the state's minimum wage goes up. So I increased it 5.5% for each of the next 2 fiscal years. That would allow us to elevate our seasonal positions, or to keep them up with minimum wage.
I think that's key. That, you know, that's what I like about the conceptually salaries and wages. If you don't keep up with the neighborhood, you're shooting yourself in the foot. It's not very far-sighted.
Yeah.
I think this tends to be far-sighted in the sense that that's a reality. And I'm just guessing that people on the job, Roman, people tend to look around, and the dollars and cents may matter to people.
We have wonderful seasonal employees that are way overqualified for the positions they work, and this is the first year I've gotten the sense from them, it's a little insulting what they're being paid. We started people below minimum wage this year, which as a municipality you're allowed to pay below minimum wage, but as you know, because of the budget cuts that we were asked to do for this fiscal year, that's all we could support. So.
Have you done any comparison of our staffing as compared to captains or the dentist courses? It
Not-
seems like we have a lot of overhead in salaries and wages.
As far as full-time, or
The whole package.
yeah, so I mean, one thing we're lucky that we have is, we have a large staff because we are the busiest 18-hole golf course. So, a lot of these other golf courses don't have rangers. And, we really try to put a focus on having rangers on the golf course. They may choose to staff less in the pro shops or less in the cart barn, driving range and such. But as far as being able to offer the level of service we want to offer, I really find this to be the minimum. I think this is the minimum. And then as far as full-time salary and wages, it's a union shop. All of our full-time employees are part of a union, and the unions regularly, every 3 to 5 years, do salary comparisons with the other towns.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the salary comparisons. I don't have any objection to that. It's the number of positions that we have in comparison to other courses, and some of them are 2 courses.
Are you talking about seasonal employees, like starters, rangers?
I'm talking about both.
Yeah.
I think maybe even another way to look at it would be if we compared salary costs and people costs to number of rounds. So if we're the busiest 18-hole course down, then obviously we're going to have the most rounds, which common sense would say in order to maintain service levels and maintain the golf course, if you're doing the most rounds, you need a higher percentage of people. But if we did that comparison, then you could compare it to a place like Captain's or Dennis that has 2, and say, well, between the 2 they did X rounds, and their staff ratio to the number of rounds is 0.14, ours is 0.16, or whatever the case may be. Because I would think the utilization of the golf course, which is what generates the demand for services, is what should drive the staffing levels. And to be frank, for whatever it's worth, I was a bit surprised when I saw this, that you didn't ask for more help. I mean, we are doing more rounds than we've ever done.
We are.
And you would think, in order to maintain the service levels and the course conditions, that between the maintenance staff for the course and the people that provide the service throughout, you would need more staff, because you're generating far more utilization in business than we've ever done before.
It's a good point, Steve. I think another thing too that's key, and I've talked to Sean personally, I mean, anybody could here. His staffing levels on the maintenance side, Carol, are bare bones. I mean, they're just on the bubble. I mean, as far as adequate numbers of man hours applied to.
And why are we doing that? Why are
So
we
this-
going to
the one thing I would
Why
mention,
don't we
though,
get them more help?
Sean helped me prepare this. This would restore us to what he would need. The current budget we're in, we're going to end up cutting out our seasonal staff early. He's going to cut out the maintenance seasonal staff on Halloween, where we normally carry it well into Thanksgiving or even December, and then bring them back later next year, possibly based on weather. But the request here from Sean would be to reach the levels he needs. It would be to restore it to the level that he thinks is adequate. The level we're currently at is on both the operations and maintenance side is below adequate.
Can we touch on the expense side?
Yeah, please.
Things too? This is kind of personal, folks, but you probably noticed our transaction fees with the banks. You saw that substantial increase. It astounds me, the amount of money that the
What
banks
line?
rake in as far as, transaction fees with credit
On the
cards.
spreadsheet, it's called
Yeah.
data processing service, line 21.
Yeah.
That number has changed drastically, and it's really changed because during the pandemic we initiated all this online tea time sales, and we're seeing the fact that we're seeing historic tea time sales, and they're all happening online. That's why that has drastically jumped. So we're doing so much more of our business online. I think it's worthwhile because those are guaranteed now. Those are all prepaid tee times, whereas in the past, they would pay on the day of play, and if it rained, you'd lose it. So it's really a benefit. I'm sorry, it's a negative to the benefit of doing historic level of business.
Well, why is that?
Is that golf now?
It's 20, yeah, Golf Now. It's 21 on the spreadsheet. It says data processing
Data
service.
processing services.
It was, I have it on here, as it was at $33,000. We didn't go from 33,000 to 48 all at once. We've been overspending that line in the budget. But because of the Golf
I
Now.
mean, I knew there was a reason for it, it's
So
just,
what's the,
it's a big chunk of
change,
change.
like 2.3% or something?
So Golf Now is access to the data processor for all the charges is 2.7%. That was part of our contract with them. And the fact that every single basically public tee time sold other than large groups or hotel groups is a credit card sale. That it never used to be the case in the past.
So that can go anywhere from 2.5 to 4?
They get strictly 2.7%.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, 2.7%.
we're lucky,
Or
John.
if a guy just comes up and uses an American Express card at the shack, isn't that?
You know, so sales at the Shack, I'm sorry, I don't have that. That goes through a different processor, through Chelsea. It's probably a slightly better rate. It's definitely in the twos. It's 2.5 or so.
Banks never lose.
Roman, I have a
Jack?
couple other questions. One is, it says, under capital projects, on the spreadsheet, you've got 68,000 a year going out. What is that, capital outlay?
So that once again, if you look,
Service?
no, so if you look at the colored spreadsheet we use for our projects, that's that column on the right. That's our $68,000 we have in our budget every year, and the commitment there is that's money to go towards T renovation, cart path, and trees. And so that's just an annual amount that we have in our budget to spend. When we use that colored spreadsheet, we dedicate, that's where we put what specific cart path we're gonna do, or what's, we ended up purchasing the stump grinder out of that line. But that's a line in our budget that's not dedicated to one specific purpose.
Okay, the other question was, you said all the projects are gonna be funded by the golf department, but you've gotta purchase a new truck. Is that from the town, or is that out of, are we purchasing that out of the golf improvement fund?
So again, on that colored spreadsheet, and I'm gonna wait till I have my discussion on this with the town administrator, because I really need his guidance on that. But my plan was to spend $40,000 out of the capital outlay, and I believe my math has shown me that we could possibly, by next fiscal year, have a balance in the infrastructure fund of $40,000. So I was hoping to split that out of two funds, and I really want to get the finance director's opinion on that and the town administrators. But on that colored spreadsheet, I have it split as 50-50 from those two funds.
And my final question is, you're showing about a 6% increase in 22 to 23. You expect something from the town, like you gotta stay at 2% or 5% or
Yes.
1% or something stupid like that?
Possibly. I mean, the message has not come to us, the budget message yet, but I did speak with the finance director about this yesterday, and I submitted this all to her a few weeks ago, and she really thought that, I mean, this kind of covers the next topic we're gonna discuss, but with rates and fees and some more aggressive revenue calculations, we could show that we're gonna cover this. And so, when I spoke with her, Clem, I don't know where we are on the agenda. Should I mention, under this item, a rate and fee
Well, it's a
recommendation?
good, yeah, it's a
Not
good,
yet.
Okay. So, well, I'll just say it vaguely then. I mean, so I'm looking at rates and fees, covering an appropriate portion of this. And then she said, because the town has so conservatively projected our revenues, we could make a case for covering it with revenues as well and being a little more aggressive in revenue. So I had a positive conversation with her that she thought this was an appropriate ask.
Okay.
Steve?
I'll throw the gorilla on the floor. I think it's a grossly under-requested ask. I mean, again, we generated 25 to 35% more revenue, more rounds than we ever have in history. Common sense says, if you're running a business and your utilization increases by 25 to 35%, to say that you can maintain the same level of quality, cost conditions, and service with only a 6% increase ask is crazy. We should be asking for $400,000 than we've ever had before.
Well, my thought,
Because the utilization has driven that, and if we want to keep utilization at that level and keep the revenue at that level, we need to see to it that we still provide the highest quality cost conditions and the highest quality service that we can. So with that amount of increased utilization, to only ask for less than a quarter of the utilization and revenue increase, you've given most of the revenue increase away to the town. And sure, they're gonna come back, as they should, because they have a huge budget, and the golf is just a small portion of it. So they're gonna come back with some generalized statements of 2 to 3% or 4% or whatever it is. You can't view revenue generating operations the same as you do just cost operations. And you're gonna put the quality and the revenue at risk if we don't spend the money that we need to, and that the revenue generation is affording us the opportunity to increase, to maintain the course, and to keep the service levels up. I mean, I did the math. We should be asking for $416,000 more.
I don't know where you got the increase of 25% of revenue though.
Compared to the last regular year.
I don't think so.
well, one thing we've always discussed here, and I know there's different opinions on this, is that, you know, it's been a goal of ours to cover our costs, and I think we are just reaching that point of covering our costs. I don't think there is any necessary gravy over that. Sean and I, when we designed this budget ask, we feel like this is everything we need to maintain the level of service, the golf course going forward. We've got the dedicated funds will continue to be able to.
But you don't know whether or not you're really covering your costs or you're making a profit.
No, but
Because we don't have all the data. The town refuses to give us, even at an estimated level, all the data to do that math.
well, that's your feeling, Steve. I think that this is what we were asking for. That Sean and I came up with this. This is what we need to maintain and keep the best golf course conditions. This is everything we need. And it would really hurt my credibility going forward, presenting more than we need. And so I don't think it's appropriate to ask for more. I couldn't justify more than what we feel we need.
And I'm not saying you ask for more than what you need, but you ask for things that would allow us, again, to maintain the course. I know one of the big ticket items we've got coming up, depending on what we do for priorities, et cetera, is gonna be the replacement of all the sprinkler heads.
Yeah.
And we've got that spaced out over multiple years.
So
Clearly, if you had more money to spend, an option would be to shorten that number of years.
yeah. So Steve, that is.
And more to do that sooner rather than later.
That's the plan we have, is in FY25 to do the whole thing and take on the debt at that time. And so we're going to set up our rates and fees to be able to pay the debt service on doing that all at once.
Why does it need to be debt service? Why do we need to borrow money if
Well,
we're
it's gonna be-
generating?
It's going to be $1 to $1.5 million. We're still waiting on the estimate right now, but it's going to be $1 to $1.5 million, which is more than we have in our funds. But it'll be definitely doable with our funds.
We want to handle that just like the cop line.
Yeah, do it all at once, and then they'd give us a debt service for it.
And that's, you know, that, the Cart Barn project, you know, stands on its own merits, because when we get to it, I think we're in a good place there as far as fund balance is concerned. And just as a point of information, folks, relative to irrigation, when we enhanced the system, I can't even begin to imagine, except I sort of remember vaguely the way it was. Cranberry Valley had a total number of sprinkler heads, 751. Not 752, but 751. And in that reorg of the irrigation, system, we jumped up to in excess of 2,200 heads, which, if you think, I mean, that's.
That was classic down the
that's-
center.
yeah,
That was
that
just
was-
classic down the center heads.
You were basically watering tees and greens and the heck with everything else. I mean, we are so fortunate. And I just, because Sean was around today and Roman had some personal issues where he wasn't on the property, I stopped and I mentioned to Sean, we were talking about, there's a supplier called Site One that's local here up in Dennis off of Great Western. And just to put in perspective the cost involved, this is without installation. Those, because we're gonna go wireless, state of the art, blah, 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 those sprinkler heads run anywhere from $285 to $300 each, depending on what the guts are in that actual head. Because the cheaper ones are the ones that go around continuously, because you don't have to have any additional machinery in there to, program them to only go like half the room versus a quarter, or, where you've got them in a weird place where you're only using a sliver of the system. So, when he gets actual numbers, it's kind of scary, but that's why it's $1.5 million.
But and just not the question, but if it's $200 a head and you get 2,200 heads, that's $4 million.
Well, 2,200, the number he gave me was 300. I don't know about.
I've been
Let's move. We'll see the.
I've been given a
we'll see
loose
when we
number.
get
They
there.
think we're gonna be 1 to 1.5 million. And we've got two separate companies giving us quotes currently.
And Jack, the other thing too is, when he mentioned briefly, because I wasn't looking at any figures, when you buy in quantity, there are substantial discounts as well. But it's a chore. And then you've got the additional cost of, putting them in and replacing the old ones. But the
Roman,
benefits.
you mentioned that Sean was operating on bare bones. Why aren't we asking for additional personnel for him seasonally?
So this ask right here would include that. In general, where he's thinner right now is on some hours during the year, but it's more on the edges of the season when he's going to hire his seasonal and when he's going to let them go for the season. This year, because the budget was so lean, we're going to let them go a little earlier. The best case scenario and what we're asking for here is that extended season for them.
And by the way, Roman, that ask in there as far as irrigation, irrigation supplies, that $10,000 they took out the year prior. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's right.
Yeah. So I'm glad that that's back in there because,
When we
I
had
think
when we had
everybody
to
understands the implications.
when we had to cut in order to make the budget required for this year, we cut from a number of different lines, and that was one of the ones we cut from in order to balance the budget. So we're asking for that money to be returned.
Are you recommending that we hire more full-time employees on maintenance or seasonal?
Whatever Sean might need.
Yeah. If I was in town, I would never hire more full-timers than we have right now.
No, they won't. That's
They
always
won't.
that's always line one
I
of
would
their
definitely
message.
go after seasonal,
Yeah.
where you're not paying benefits.
Well, he probably doesn't need anyone in the winter anyway. Any more people in the winter.
Well, I can assure you, Sean and I designed this ask together, and again, there were more detailed forms on this. He had it down to the hour of what he needs for optimum maintenance staff.
Well, that is good news in a way, and, to the point you made, Jack, you know, the usual has been,
I hope you
oh, you're
get it.
gonna get 1.5%, to the point you made, Steve, excuse us. You know, we're generating revenue.
So again, my follow-on question is then, what are we doing to change that strategy? I mean, right now, the strategy is pretty straightforward, or at least my opinion of the strategy, which is, you take a look at historic budgets, you go in trying to be as conservative as you can possibly be on an ask for an increase, knowing that historically the town doesn't like to see big increases. But now that we're in this situation where golf has become so popular, where we've generated so much more revenue than historically.
We haven't though. The revenue had, the costs have basically stayed the same over the last, as I remember, the last 5 or 6 years. It's in that area of 1.6 to 1.5 to 1.65.
Yeah,
The revenue has, in the last 5 years, has gone from like 1.7, and I think this year we're gonna do about 1.9. Next year we're projecting maybe 2.
So the fiscal year that just closed, we were at 2.1. We made a big jump to 2.1.
Okay, so with 2.1, that would give us about $400,000 differential. Now that 400,000 though, we've been through this scenario a lot. I mean, a certain percentage of that is going to the general fund, only because even though we are a revenue producing department, there's so many departments within the town that do not produce revenue.
exactly.
So that's where a lot of that money obviously is going. It's going to the general fund.
And I don't have a problem with a good portion, or some significant portion, if you want to call it that, going to help offset the non-revenue generating
Right.
funds in the town. However, to follow sort of guidelines and suggestions from the finance department on the year-to-year budget increase based on all of the departments in the town, as opposed to some significant percentage of the revenue difference, you're putting the revenue stream at risk. If we don't maintain the golf course, if we don't provide a high level of service, the revenue stream is going to go down. So let's say we split the difference.
I don't think it would though, Steve. You know why? Because our whole strategy is basically, number one, our funds that we have, and also the funds that we're trying to get through the infrastructure fund and through, you know, capital outlays and we paying the debt. That's our whole emphasis right now in the big projects that we have. The town has got to give us that money, but yet we pay for the debt.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our source of improving the golf course, and that's what we've done over the years.
But if we had more revenue from, if we had more
And
expense
you had
money,
more cash from the golf
From-
department to invest in those projects.
you wouldn't have to, your debt service would not be as high. We wouldn't have to borrow as much.
There's only one problem with that, though. I don't think it's gonna happen.
And that's because, again, my contention is we haven't changed the strategy yet.
Yeah,
Well,
but you're not
that's the
gonna
difference
change for
between the
single-family
operating
stuff.
budget and the capital.
It's not changing finance, it's changing how budget allocations are done. There's no rules in finance. In essence, if anything, you could go the other way that says, really, the town should know whether or not any of their revenue generating operations are generating profits beyond what the expenses are. Because
Yeah, but
you
it's
can
like-
get into the whole theoretical issue then of, hey, you're charging people an unapproved tax. If you're charging at rates that will generate more revenue than your expenses, then are you not charging more than you should so that you have that extra revenue to go into the town departments that don't generate revenue? Is that not a tax? And that could be a slippery slope. And I'm not suggesting we go to enterprise fund, we go through all the legalese. All I'm saying is if we generated $400,000 more than our costs and our historic average, then to ask for 75% of that, or 50% of that, so that we can maintain the golf course, maintain the service levels, and maintain the revenue stream, if the town is getting half of that increase because of the utilization, you're helping the town with their non-revenue generating portions, and you're helping to ensure that that revenue stream stays as high as it possibly can, so that the golf course gets better and people enjoy themselves just as much, if not more, and you're helping the town. But that's a strategic change. Right now, we're going through the budget request like every other department goes through the budget request, which is, oh geez, how much do you think each department, how much do you think the town can afford? And they give some overall overarching percentages. We are unique in that we generate revenue,
Well, we're not the only one. There's three departments in town that generate revenue.
okay?
Right?
Again, though, I mean, I would say,
I hear what you're
we
saying.
really feel this addresses our needs. The golf course is being maintained. You know, as we mentioned about staffing.
And it's in excellent shape.
Yeah, it's in great, I mean, we really have no needs other than, as far as an operating budget. I know you're crossing into talking about capital projects, but that's a whole separate deal. We've got our funds for those. This is strictly the operating budget for the year.
And I think,
Yeah.
and I think it's,
But there are things that are not on our priority list that we haven't forecasted, that maybe we could afford if we had this incremental revenue. I mean, we talked at one point about permanent bathrooms, whether that's $75,000
Well,
to
again, that'd be
$100,000.
capital though, so I think when we look at rates and fees, we give
But
more
you-
into a capital
But
fund.
why are you increasing rates and fees to pay for that stuff when you have extra money that you're generating in regular revenue?
But this is
already?
our annual operating budget. It's not appropriate to put bathrooms in this. That's a capital project that should be handled as a capital project.
So,
we'll have a chance to discuss that at our special meeting and, you know, create priorities as such. But I think it's incumbent, you know, because of the time and so on, to stay focused on what Roman's presented. To Martha's point, because it's a collaboration between Sean and Roman, if this as proposed meets those needs, Jack, I'll tell you, I would be very pleased if, in fact, the town administrator and/or the CFO, if Carol Capola, you know, green light this proposal, because in the scheme of Harwich finances, for us to get a 5 or 6% increase to our budget would be huge. I mean, I know it's small potatoes versus what Steve's talking about, but there's also the reality that we have to deal with. So,
but what is that reality, Clem?
Well,
That's what I suffer
but we
from.
can't change that. I mean,
Yes, you can.
well,
You can change anything. We should never go into this thinking that whatever it has been has got to be the way it always is going forward.
well, that's not part of our charge. I mean, we
We
advise.
seem to have a proposal which meets the needs of the course, allows us to maintain it. That's the key.
Right.
I have a question in terms of presentation, and maybe it's just me or that I am new and don't know how to actually see all of revenue, for example, and I'm looking at a projected revenue of $1.8 million on one of your pages, and yet we talk about $2.1 million, and
Yeah,
so
I can
I
address
don't
that.
have any document that shows me our revenue year over year over year.
Okay, I
And
presented that a
expense-
few months ago, FY15 through now. I can make sure you have that. The 1.8 million was a number that, I've mentioned this a few times at the committee level. That's the number that was,
The town.
the town's finance director came up with in her budget for the town. And she admits it's very conservative, but in the days of tornadoes and pandemics, they want to keep our projection conservative. So I include that number on the spreadsheet I present, even though the numbers show we are on pace to far exceed
Okay,
that.
so
That's in the town's budget, is 1.8 million for golf department.
Yeah.
These are all the fiscal years.
Okay.
Okay.
And you can see where we had
So-
the great anomaly because of the tornado.
Are we prepared to move on?
Yes.
Yeah. to rates and fees.
Sure.
That-
I mean, it's part of the same discussion, isn't it?
Huh?
It's part of the same discussion, isn't it?
Yeah,
Isn't that part of-
folks, you know, obviously with this kind of background presented, you know, I think the next step is to see what the implications are for rates and fees that would accomplish what Roman has outlined. So if you would take us there.
Sure, so again, this is very preliminary because this time of year, it's just a starting point, and I'd love to get feedback from the committee on this. But I have reached out to the other municipalities to see what their plans are on rates and fees for next year. And only 2 of the other towns have even begun the process yet. Barnstable is doing a 5% increase on their memberships, which has them increasing, I think, $59 for residents and 78 or so would be for non-residents. When I tie, everything's, you know, tied together, so I think our customers are accustomed to our method of increasing every other year for either greens fees or annual passes. So this would be a year to address annual passes. The numbers I'm crunching right now are based on a $50 increase for residents of Harwich for their annual pass. And what that would generate, and again, you extrapolate that with the $100 increase we're planning already for Chatham, Eastham, and Orleans, that would bump them $150 this upcoming year.
Quick question there,
Yep.
Roman. With that 150 increase for, you know, the Chatham Orleans, because we were trying to work toward parity, does that establish a number that's consistent with the other, you know, non-residents?
So we'd still be 1 year off, so this would be
Okay.
the second year
So
of our 3 years that we
Gotcha.
were doing it. So they would still be $100 below, because everything else would extrapolate out. That a $50 increase to the base the base Harwich resident rate, and then the additional 100 for that group, would generate $84,000 approximately. And the way that I'm initially crunching the numbers is cutting that number in half, to where half that money would go towards general fund obligation, which would be the $106,000 that I'm requesting increase to the budget, and then the other $42,000 would go into the golf improvement fund to help with the debt service for the upcoming irrigation project. And so, once again, it's all a little theoretical at this point, because until we get the actual quote for the irrigation system that I've been told that is definitely $1 to $1.5 million, and then I get that to the town's finance director, she'll get us a debt schedule, then we'll know exactly what we're dealing with. But I do think that knowing the number is going to be probably on the high side of $1.5 million, putting some more money in that could shorten the length of the debt on that, and then allow us to start tackling other projects. So that's my initial thought, and that's what I'm initially working with. But I definitely invite comments from the committee, because I'll make a formal recommendation next month, as we do each October.
Numbers, and I think right now the annual pass holder now is paying what, $810?
$810,
And Chatham
$910.
is and Chatham's the same as Eastham and Orleans.
Yes.
At $910.
$910.
No, Chatham's 835.
I thought we moved it last year.
We
Up
did.
$100.
Only $50.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. You're absolutely.
I thought it went to $910.
So the Chatham. Well, let me get that.
According to the website, it's
I thought-
835.
100.
I'll get this here. Bear with me.
We increased Chatham last year by 75,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that brought it to 910.
That's not what the website says, but let me check again. I looked it up. According to the website, adult Harwich 810, adult Chatham resident 835.
That was 2020 though.
That's old information. So you're I'm hoping that your computer is picking up.
You're off.
Okay. So where do I find the current ones? I just did a search for Cranberry Valley Golf membership.
I'll get it here.
Agree.
What else we got there? So here we go. So Harwich 810, Chatham, East Ham Orleans 910,
910.
non-resident 1110.
Like you said, it was
So
$100
it's not
difference.
Yes.
You're recommending going another 100 on Chatham,
So,
East Ham and Orleans?
So
100 plus
th-
any
this ye-
increase that we do on Howard.
yeah, that's right. So I was going to start with the 50 on Harwich, John, and then we were already planning on $100 to Chatham, East Ham, and Orleans. So I would throw that 100 to Chatham, East Ham, and Orleans on top of the 50 we're already doing. So they would extend $150. And you know, what I would say, they went up 100 last year. I know going up a lot over just a couple of years may give some of them a little pause, but our Chatham residents continued to grow unabated this year even with the
So that would
increase.
make them 1060?
So that would make them next year 1060. And you know, that still compares very well with non-resident rates at other golf courses. The Barnstable non-resident rates in the 1700s, and a lot of the other golf courses, that would compare very well with the other municipalities.
And so then you're saying, if we go up on Harwich at 50,
Yep,
25 of that goes to the operating budget, and
Yep.
25 goes to the
golf improvement,
budget.
yes.
The other question would be, is 50 enough?
That's, so when I mentioned this to this is part of the conversation I had with the finance director yesterday, $42,000 to the general fund to cover our increases in the budget would be appropriate, because she would then work to be a little more aggressive in projecting revenues, because our revenues are clearly exceeding what she has estimated. So my initial conversation with her was positive that this would cover needs.
Steve?
Why would we be raising the rates at all on Howard residents if we already are making more money, we're bringing in more money than we're spending?
Well, you know, I mean, Steve, we've had this conversation so often. The way that the town really looked at it, there was a gap between revenues and expenses that we were in a shortfall. We're just now covering expenses, according to the town. We're just approaching covering expenses. So anything we go up in order to, you know, it was really the golf committee's goal to do a better job covering our expenses. And I think our rates and fees and our increase in revenue have gotten us to covering more of those expenses to where we've really closed that gap. When I look at this, and I know you and I see this differently, but I think that any increase we have to the budget we should find a way to cover it, so we continue to have our expenses have our revenues cover our expenses.
I guess my thought is that we did. We generated enough revenue to more than cover our expenses, and that's how we covered it. And we're gonna get $100 or more from the Chatham people and East Ham people, which isn't gonna be a lot, but it's gonna be some, assuming we keep the membership numbers stay about the same. And again, it all comes back down to whether or not we're truly covering our expenses. And if we are, then any additional cost to a resident of Harwich is basically to give the town more money in their general fund, and it's asking the golfers to help pay an incremental tax that no one else pays, that goes into the general fund of the town.
But if you,
And
Okay, I want to hear from everyone.
if
So,
you recall, I think this has been one of the major, I think, debate topics we've struggled with. When we say we've made 2.1 million, what isn't included in expenses is all the indirect charges. Pensions, medical expenses, all that is never included in Roman's expenses. So I think what he's saying is basically, we're at a point now where if you do actually include those, although the town doesn't seem to want to do that, then we are breaking even. But it's not, if your salary and wages go up, your indirect expenses are gonna go up as well.
Mhm.
But I don't believe this may be the first year where we've actually covered our expenses.
The last fully allocated cost sheet that Carol presented, and I know I've shared this with you, Steve, what had us at 2.3 million was our fully allocated
Right.
cost. That was part of the FY20 budget,
So
I
the
believe.
money isn't going into the general fund, Steve, it's
I don't
going,
remember seeing a 2.3.
yeah, at that
Did it
meeting,
include all the indirect costs, including
yeah.
cross-department charges?
No, not cross-department, but all the employee benefit.
Benefits.
The
um,
employee benefits, I mean, the sheets that we have without those are only 1.8. The employee benefits are not 500,000.
Steve, I've shared this document with you a number of times, including when we were sitting with the town administrator. There's that one sheet that Carol put in her full town budget that's right on the town's website, and it shows each department's fully allocated cost. That was a big initiative of Carol. She wanted to show every department's fully allocated cost, and it did have us at 2.3 million. And I know that we've dealt with that number a lot of times at the golf committee level here, because we've discussed closing that gap, that there was a gap that we were trying to close. And that 2.3 number has gone down as our debt service has gone down in the last year. So I think it's more like 2.2 to 2.1, which is right where our revenues are. So I really feel like we've closed that gap and we are pretty much breaking even.
We're close.
And so if we want to go up in the budget, we've got to have a mechanism to continue to cover that.
Carol, I'd like to hear from you.
What about looking at other categories like young adult? Some of the 30-year-olds.
Yeah, no, so I'm sorry, I didn't get that specific. What I was looking at was 50 across the board, except for juniors. And then the category of Chatham, East Hampton, and Orleans would have an additional 100 because that was the plan. So collegiate, young adult would all have 50. We would do, what I'd recommend would be 50, except.
Why are we looking at
But I-
juniors?
Well,
Yeah.
the juniors have such a reduced access to the golf course. They only have day of play access. So I think it's a real benefit to the golf course to allow them a very reasonable rate, because they don't have the ability to make advanced tee times. They only get to scoop up the day of play leftovers.
Martha?
I do think we should change that young adult
Mhm.
age group. 19 to 30 is absurd.
Yeah.
I think maybe 19 to 23, 24. There are people, young adults that are working from 25 to 30 that are making a heck of a lot more money than I am.
Well, one reason that we put that in there is, that age group is working hard, and they're not competing for weekday tee times. That's a group that's generally has a family and is working and is only available for a weekend tee time or so. And in general, they are price conscious. So most of the golf courses do offer a discount for that age group
And I
because
think
of that.
Isn't the rationale, of course, is that hopefully you're gonna convert those people into, full
Well,
paying.
you hope you get them in, and then you get their kids into the programs and
Way too low.
I think it's too low.
Then we should have a senior
Well, yeah, if
Up
you
there.
look at the logic of that, it's true.
Anybody over 78?
Where'd you come up with that?
Okay, well, this gives us a preliminary start point.
What
and-
about grease fees?
so we went up significantly in greens fees last year by going up $5. We're still, again, I haven't heard back from all the municipalities what their plans are, but we're still, I believe, the highest municipal greens fee on Cape. So I was not planning on going up on those. I really think we should stick with the every other year program, which would have us going up in greens fees next year.
And I think psychologically, when you throw in the cart, unless you haven't done it recently, it's $103.
103, yes. We crossed the $100 mark last
So-
year.
I think for the time being, I like the fact that we've done the every other year, and that's been
I
our,
think we should leave it open. I mean, I think that's something we should still talk about.
Okay.
okay.
And the times of the changes of the fees is significant.
Mhm.
So maybe we could alter that a little bit, tweak that.
Sure, and anything's doable. We normally mirror, I mean, the dates normally mirror the same thing all the other golf courses do, because there's significant dates like Memorial Day, Labor Day. That's really when the changes occur, Mother's Day. Early in the year, you kind of ramp up with a few different rate changes because the conditions and the availability is so different from April to May, early May to mid-May. Your season really ramps up there. But once we hit Memorial Day, sorry, this keeps turning off. Once we hit Memorial Day, we're a 7-day-a-week highest rate on the Cape of all the municipalities. So, you know, we used to have a weekday rate and a weekend rate. We did away with that a few years ago. So, but anything's doable. I mean, please feel free to give feedback.
Do you think that's impacted the greens fee play this year?
I think that, you know, what I'm really looking at with that, John, is I think this year was a year of incredible demand, and I think next year maybe not so much. I think what we're seeing is a return to normalcy, so it may be a more competitive environment again next year. I'm not seeing that necessarily for greens fees at this point, but as I mentioned, the member play has dropped off a lot, and I think a lot of people are starting to travel again. You hear more and more stories about people traveling where they weren't traveling previously. So I think there's going to be some return to normalcy, and I wouldn't recommend outpricing ourselves on the Cape scene.
Well, I think, you know, if we do approximately 45,000 rounds, we should probably have a good breakdown if we can. We have the data in the system. But if you took a look at each one of those classifications that we have up on that sheet and just put the number of rounds, you know, Harwich residents, Chatham,
Right.
just see how many rounds they play. I mean,
Yeah.
that might give us some perspective in terms of, you know.
It could. So I know what we're currently doing is about 55,000 rounds has been the big jump we've had. We used to do 45,000, so we may be returning a little more towards 45,000. But about 20,000, 19,000 or so of that is public play, and the remainder is member play. I haven't broken it down among the categories of members.
Just a quick question, Rome. The young adults, how many young adult members do we have?
It's less than 100.
Yeah, so. Yeah, whatever. Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to move on to the Cart Barn project, and there's some good news and bad news, I guess.
Just to answer your question, so 63 was the young adult membership.
Just 63?
Less than 100.
Yeah, 63 young adults. But that's a fairly new category, and that category has been on the rise. I think we've had it in place for 3 years.
I've got a question for you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Joe.
When we have this next meeting, which
Yeah.
is what, next week?
No, the meeting next week is a workshop-specific
Right.
meeting where we're gonna discuss, you know, it's
Is
kind
this-
of open.
Is this one of them? Breaking fees, or is that going to be the next golf committee?
That would be the next regular meeting.
So the next golf committee meeting would have to be definitive in terms of what our rate and fee schedule is going to be, because the public's not sure would be the next meeting.
No, I don't think that's right, because I think the next meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, Clem, the next meeting, I'll present my recommendation, then the committee gives feedback, and then we do a meeting a week later. Isn't that right, Clem? Where we have the hearing.
Meeting a week later,
Okay.
yeah.
So it'd be
Yeah.
a separate meeting for the public.
Yeah, isn't that right, Clem? Is that the
Yeah,
plan?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Public hearing, and then we adjourn the public hearing, if you remember, and then, you know, we have,
Yeah, I got you.
that,
So at the next meeting, I'll present a recommendation, and I'll take the feedback of the committee before we have the hearing, which will have a final recommendation.
okay. So the Cart Barn project, Roman?
Yep, so, I didn't prepare any information for this online, but, so as you mentioned, Clem, we have some definitive news, and it's not great news. I've got a solid delivery date, or a solid production date on the cart fleet. It's January 6th. So they have been delayed. You know, as I told Clem, it's a better date for us operationally, so I've got no issues with it. I think it'll give us a lot of time in the winter to hang the chargers the way we want them, to work out the system, set up the GPS the way we want it to. So it is what it is. Again, it's a distribution chain issue, but January 6th is our production date, and we're going to expect to have them on property within 5 to 7 business days after that.
And basically, when the carts do arrive, Roman, because I don't think people are aware of this, there's a kind of aftermarket fabrication. I mean, they don't come fully equipped. Isn't there an install?
Yeah, I mean,
regimen?
there's the seats will have plastic on them. There's duties to go through. They have the charger in the cart, so you have to take the charger out and mount it. The seats all have plastic on them,
Yeah.
so you have to get a razor out and cut the plastic off the seats. There's not a lot of installation, but they're not ready to go. Whereas if they came in around Columbus Day weekend, we would have to contact all of our customers and say we're not going to have carts for the next 2 days
And
because
I'm just guessing the whole GPS system that we're going to enjoy, that's an add-on, I would think as well. How
yeah.
about the canopies in the back to protect the clubs?
Yep.
Isn't that all, that's all done manually at our facility?
No, they'll arrive with that.
Oh, well,
They'll arrive with that. They'll arrive with the permanent tow bars on them, with the
that's good.
canopies on them.
GPS.
GPS on them, yep. And so, with the, they threw us a small bone, we'll see what it actually amounts to, but by having the later production date, we'll have the upgraded system on the GPS, which, again, I don't have anything to compare it to, so I'm not gonna wave a flag that we end up with some great benefit until we see it. But they said we'll have the newer operating system on the GPS.
Now, on the good news side of the coin, give us a kind of glimpse of balance. We haven't seen, and I'm sure it's available, but there's a specific balance as far as all of our costs and expenses to the project to date. How much money is left? Because
Yes.
the implication, people, if you remember, because this is really important, I think, the reskinning of Sean's secondary building, that's your chemical storage. It's not very romantic stuff, but, his nuts and bolts and protecting, what he does is important. That's why I was curious.
So I haven't updated this in a little while, so I'll try to get this updated for the next committee meeting, but, the reskinning, counting $150,000 on the reskin, we've got a remainder of $65,000 or so, so put that onto the, reskin, and we're looking at, $215,000 or so towards the reskin at this point.
So in other words, there will be those funds available.
Yeah, so that's the funding that at this point is available. Again, I've got to reaccount for
We'll
this.
get the wash pad too, right?
Yeah, the wash pad as well, but I've already accounted for $20,000 for the wash pads. So that $215 would be additional. So I've already accounted for $20,000 for the wash pad.
And people, I know it's kind of jargon and so on, but it's so vitally important. The way that existing building is set up, the one that's going to be reskinned, the reference that Roman is making to a quote knee wall, that's an imperative. Because
What?
a knee wall,
What's
it's
a knee
that's why I was going to explain it in case anybody might have a question. It's basically they usually
A wall
factor it in
that's
at 3 feet
Yeah.
of block,
It's that
so that
simple.
the building's up and you're not getting flood waters inundating the building, and that's been the problem. I mean, if you go around the back of that, you're welcome to, I've been in there,
It's a wet building.
it's your worst nightmare.
The building's wet, water runs right through it.
Really?
Yeah.
So included in the reskinning is a building of a knee wall?
So that's something we would include in that design. What happened when we built the cart barn, we had J.J. Cardosi, who built the cart barn, give us an estimate on doing the reskin, and that's where it came up. He recommended, we were going to try to do the reskin just as a change order with him, and he said, your estimate's way off. You definitely need a knee wall for this building, and he gave us a lot of other good information. Unfortunately, at that time, the town administrator decided, let's not pursue this until the end of the project when we get the cart barn built and see what we have left. So we're approaching that point now, is to get new quotes, and they should include a knee wall.
Roman, just a question on the January date. Are you gonna have people able to assist you in doing
Yes.
all that stuff?
So our full-time maintenance staff will all be on hand.
They'll be there.
Yep.
Well, that's really good, and you know, I mean, they're just small things, but maybe an update, because I saw your notes, as far as the enhanced Wi-Fi that's gonna be made available.
Yep.
Timetable for that, Roman?
I'm hoping in the next few weeks that Comcast has been on the property and they've done the design for what we need
Yeah.
to bring the Wi-Fi service there. They're putting together an estimate for us for the install.
And another thing, folks, if you remember, I guess this is a work in progress, but the security gate, not that this was part of the capital project, but the security gate.
Yep, so I believe I mentioned this at a previous meeting, that the plan, the plan that we came up with is to trench from the road
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the current gate and install a gate at the road, because the 40-foot sliding gate halfway up the driveway, we couldn't work with the elevation of that whatsoever.
Oh.
So we put our mechanic, Paul, on that job,
Yeah.
and he was supposed to fabricate the gate. What we've turned it to now is we're gonna do a secondary line from the street and directly to the existing gate on Oak Street, and have that be an electric
So a
gate.
better look.
Yeah, so we'll do that in-house. We'll do the trench work in-house. We'll do because of the secondary line, we'll do that in-house. So we just need that to be an off-season project.
So basically, other than those few things, we're close to
But
being
we're
able to say
closing it
that.
up, yeah.
Have we given them a timetable to finish that?
The security gate, not at this point, because that, we're gonna do that in-house with our maintenance staff. Our maintenance staff is dedicated for the next 4 to 6 weeks or so with golf course operations. So I believe that we'll get into that in November. We'll do the trench work
Yeah.
probably in November for that.
Okay, any other questions?
Are we able to get that information in advance of our meeting?
What information is that?
That
Oh, I'm sorry, I just pulled this up. This is, you'll see along the top, I haven't updated this spreadsheet since 4/10, so I've got to update this. I'm sorry, I just did this for a little snapshot to you. For the next meeting, I will have this updated, and I'll share it with you.
Okay, folks, any other business to bring before the committee?
Just have a question, Roman.
Sure.
Are
Yeah.
you planning on doing a non-member survey this year?
We had not done one, so I honestly did not have plans to do one. I'd take feedback from the committee, if the committee wanted, felt one way or the other about it, or you wanted to help design a survey. I'm not sure. We had not done one. We did them years previous to the tornado and the pandemic, and I always did them at kind of high time in the season, around 4th of July or so you'd have the most people able to give feedback, but no, we did not do one
So
this
you
year.
got a good mix from
Yeah,
the paying public as well as,
well, that was a separate one. So we used to get the cards that we give to the paying public, and we'd collect those separately from the annual pass holder survey that we'd have. And we got great details from that, some great data from it. But I think at a committee meeting, it was decided that maybe the committee wanted to work on a different set of questions or so with that. So I kind of paused on it, and I don't know if, Clem, you want to put that as an agenda item in the future to see if the committee would like to help design a,
sure, good.
questionnaire, because the one that we had used, it's great to have something to compare it to, but it is a little dated at this point.
Specifically, what did you have in mind, Carol?
Well, I just think it's just sort of fundamental practice to reach out to our audience to ask how they feel about the job we're doing and or suggestions of what
Right.
could
Fine.
be done to improve.
Okay, yeah. We can, well, maybe that's something we could discuss, for example, next week.
Next week.
Okay? Okay, folks, Steve?
Roman, whoever does maintain the website, could you have them update the website so that the online fees match the application fees?
Sure, let me just see here.
I'm
So
just thinking
this
that if
is
people go to
this
look, if you look
is on
online,
the
you
website
find-
right here. Where are you looking on the
What's
website?
that? Well, he's, John Chimney?
Current charges?
Yes.
Well, then you just got that on the town website,
This is, I'm on the
right?
website right now, this is updated,
No,
but,
that, yes, it's updated on the application, but if you go to the website and you go to rates,
yeah, there's no, the annual passes aren't on here. The annual passes are on the, application.
all right, let me find it again. I'll find it and I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know.
There's something that just is out of sync.
One thing we deal with a lot, and I wouldn't say this is necessarily the case, but one thing we do deal with a lot with people thinking some of the website stuff's out of date, but a lot of times your computer will hold a cache of old information, so it pulls up an old version of the website. But let me know, always, please let me know if you see any out-of-date information, because we try to keep it consistent.
Okay,
I'll find it and let you know. Thanks.
no other business to bring before? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, second
Second.
by Martha, Duffy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. See you in a week, folks.
Yeah.
Where will we meet?
In this room.
Here?
Paul, yeah, thanks, thanks. Bring your ideas. Yeah. I mean,
Yours, Steve, or is it available?
You can have it. I have one at home already.
I do too.
Thank you.
you know,
That's where you get the revenue
I think it'll take a while to do.
Yes, and it does show, there is, in the town report, it shows everything, what the indirect costs are. The only thing it doesn't show is cross-departmental,
Cross charges.
because they don't do cross charges.
Yeah.
So I asked I asked the finance woman if she, I said, why can't we do something like, just estimate? For instance, if you look at the water department's budget and their
Yeah,
That's
benefit
why I thought it was.
costs, they're almost
Appropriate.
exactly the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
I
as the golf.
Cause he really.
And so I said, okay, so let's make an assumption
Yeah,
that
yeah, oh, God,
the
that was passion.
percentage of time that the shared departments, legal, engineering,
Yeah.
procurement,
He met with
spend
Roman.
on the golf
He
is
loved
similar
it.
to
Loved
what they spend on the water
Well,
department.
I'm glad your trip was
Well,
great.
that's what-
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
It's terrific.
And I think.
It isn't.
Oh, it is.
But it's all itemized.
Yeah.
But I said, you
They're
could,
responsible for everything.
you could use that estimate.
They do their own billing.
Rate adjustment.
Oh, I know, but what I'm saying is if we simply could get an estimate of that,
To Jack's point,
we would have our total costs.
person that goes
But
extra
what the
mile.
TEA said is
Not that
that,
I deserve it, but 5 to 6%.
he said that when they went to do the
Non-debatable.
water department,
For them,
they brought in a
they
consultant
filibuster. I mean, those little, the $10,000.
the other
that took out
departments
buying
and find out what
irrigation equipment,
percentage of time they spent doing stuff for the
$100,000
water department.
disappeared.
And I said, okay.
And
He
this
said,
is-
I don't wanna do that unless I do it, if I stop this.
Yeah, let's, thanks, thanks, Jeff. Motion, I guess.